On the evening of August 19th, 2032 in the Taipei neighborhood of Tianmu, Lieutenant General Huang Jinlong, Chief of the Taiwanese Air Force's Air Defense and Missile Command, left his apartment for what would be the hour-long commute to the Air Operations Center, a location buried deep into the hillside near National Taiwan University and affectionately nicknamed Toad Mountain by staff. Kissing his wife goodbye, the Lieutenant General was uncertain when he would return home again, as the ongoing crisis with China escalated by the hour. The latest intelligence was alarming and grim. The PLA and their vast arsenal of air, sea, ground and missile forces in the region were now at a readiness level 1, their highest full alert status. More distressing were the latest satellite images showing PLA troops preparing to board landing ships in port, while suspected anti-radiation missiles, weapons that would surely be used in the opening moments of a war to destroy Taiwan's air defenses, were being emptied from their bunkers and transported to airfields, parked with awaiting bombers and stealth aircraft. Yet while Taiwan's military mobilized in response, its civilians remained in a state of disbelief. Though furious at China's seizing of the Kinmen Islands and the quarantine, many had become dangerously desensitized to China's decades-long threats, believing an invasion of the mainland unlikely, only more so with the Americans and their allies now pouring assets into the region. The prevailing public belief was that Beijing would ultimately step back from the brink. Despite that belief, events were fueling a run on banks across the country and on basic supplies and groceries, requiring police to deploy and enforce limits. Meanwhile, foreign nationals, including embassy staff from over 24 countries, began to evacuate the island. As aircraft streamed out, a limited number of civilian aircraft arrived carrying Taiwanese citizens from abroad, desperate to be home amongst loved ones. Scattered among them were several Americans, UK and Australians, presenting as civilians, though were actually intelligence and special forces operators who would soon join with their Taiwanese partners in the field. For Lieutenant General Huang, the prospect of war felt far more imminent than what American intelligence advisors were suggesting, which was that the PLA would not be fully prepared for an invasion for another week, if one were coming at all. He hoped that was true, and that reason, conciliation and deterrence would win the day. It would not. As Huang's driver and bodyguard navigated the winding streets of Tianmu, his vehicle suddenly stalled. The car's infotainment system, hacked months ago, was providing the PLA with the identity, location and access it needed. Once triggered by a geo-fence or virtual tripwire, a code was automatically broadcast to the vehicle's engine control unit, disabling it at the attacker's place of choosing. Simultaneously, the tripwire signaled the launch of 2 autonomous suicide drones pre-staged on a rooftop. The entire attack automated without human interaction. Before the Lieutenant General had time to question what was happening, the drones struck. The Chief of Taiwan's Air Defense and Missile Command died instantly in the blast of fire and shrapnel. China's war on Taiwan had begun. China's invasion of Taiwan began with a series of simultaneous attacks that spanned globally, from the seabed to geostationary orbit. The PLA's objective? To blind, confuse, degrade, disrupt or eliminate key leadership, infrastructure, communications, early warning, air defense, and ISR systems, clearing a pathway for a massive air and missile attack that would itself pave the way for an invasion. Their strategy, termed the Assassin's Maces, was based on a concept rooted deep in Chinese folklore, emphasizing the use of unconventional, asymmetric, and surprise weapons and tactics to defeat a stronger adversary. Technologies, including drone, AI, cyber, and space, helped propel the strategy into the modern age, where the battlefield was everywhere. In Taiwan, scores of decapitation strikes were carried out to disrupt command and control. Though several attempts failed or were thwarted, the successes were shocking. Along with Lieutenant General Huang, the Ministers of Justice, of Transportation and Communications, along with the commanders of the 6th Tactical Mixed Wing and the 8th Army Corps, as well as officer directors of the Kaohsiung and Taipei international airports, and the harbour master of the port of Kaohsiung, were all killed through various means. Even within the safety of his bunker at the Hengshan Military Command Center, buried within the Daji Yanan mountain, the president of Taiwan narrowly missed an attempt on his life, tipped off at the last moment that a traitorous member on his security staff had received orders to kill. Meanwhile, hundreds of suicide drones, launched within Taiwan by PLA operatives, carried out fast, low-level attacks on early warning radars, satellite teleport facilities, air defense systems, and with limited success, attacked Taiwan's airborne early warning aircraft, parked on the ground at the Pingtung Air Base. On Fenglin Road in Kaohsiung City, a Taiwanese commuter watched in bewilderment as a commercial truck stopped along the roadway, the container top suddenly opening and releasing drones that flew to the adjacent electrical substation. There, he quoted, "Like a fireworks show, the drones exploded, severing local power, an action carried out in dozens of key locations across Taiwan. Simultaneously, scores of drones rose above cities and towns, their transmitters sending orders to kill switches buried deep in hacked code within network, communications, utility, logistics and infrastructure systems, while compromised civilian and commercial vehicles died where they were, gridlocking highways, bridges and intersections. Inside the massive 8-mile-long 4-lane Shuishan tunnel, a truck with its unwitting driver detonated a payload of explosives, killing and burying dozens and severing the main artery connecting the capital city of Taipei with the eastern city of Yilan and the port of Sueo. Plunged in rumor, panic and darkness, what little information that reached the public in the moment was confused and seeded with hacked disinformation, including a convincing AI-generated video of President Ying Yao Chen announcing his government's surrender to the PRC. But the attacks and chaos stretched far beyond Taiwan. At the US Indo-PACOM headquarters northeast of Honolulu, Hawaii, Indo-PACOM Commander Admiral Michael Mullikin received a sudden and expanding torrent of dreadful alerts. In Japan, the Kyogamisaki and Shariki communications sites, each operated by the US Army to detect, track and monitor ballistic missile threats, were damaged by small, locally launched drones, while others attacked facilities at US and Japanese military air bases, including at the sprawling Kadena Air Base on Okinawa, the nearby Marine Corps Air Station Futenma, the Yokota and Misawa air bases on the Japanese mainland, among several others. Air defense radars, satellite ground and microwave relay stations, power cell towers and undersea cable landing stations were all targeted with limited success. Attacks on vulnerable fuel storage facilities proved highly effective, setting alight some 40% of Indo-PACOM's total inventory in the region. As one journalist wrote, "It looked as though all of Japan was blanketed in smoke." Similar drone attacks, including those launched from unmanned underwater vehicles or maritime militia vessels, were carried out in the Philippines, Papua New Guinea, Guam, Palau, and as far away as Diego Garcia, targeting early warning, air defense, power, communications, and fuel storage facilities. 1,200 miles northwest of the Midway Atoll, the US Missile Defense Agency's sea-based X-band radar was attacked by over a dozen submarine-launched suicide drones. Operated primarily by civilian contractors, the vessel's security officer, Jason Golding, recalled his furious frustration at defending the critical and remote radar facility against the incoming swarm with little more than small arms and a .50 caliber machine gun. Said Golding, "By the time the cavalry arrived, we were cooked." The attack left 3 contractors dead and rendered the ballistic missile defense system inoperable. Simultaneously, at approximately 350 miles above the Earth, the battle was joined as the PLA Aerospace Force carried out strikes against Taiwanese US, and Allied constellation satellites in low Earth orbit through jamming and direct energy attacks, while in distant geostationary orbit, GPS and SATCOM satellites over the Pacific region were jammed by maneuvering satellites with varying degrees of success. For the moment, China refrained from launching orbital or direct ascent anti-satellite attacks, fearing the cascading debris fallout would, in turn, render entire regions of orbit uninhabitable for all satellites, whether friend or foe. The initial attacks in space, the first of its kind in scope and scale, was successful in that it initially degraded the ability for Taiwan, the US, and its allies to effectively locate targets, cue them to warfighters, and guide weapons to their accurate and real-time locations during the opening moments of the war. Beyond the initial surprise attack, however, dominance of space would ultimately remain an elusive prize for China. Back at the INDOPACOM headquarters in Hawaii, Admiral Michael Mulliken and his staff were already running on fumes, exhausted from the steady drumbeat of activity beginning from the quarantine to the lead-up of the naval convoy off Taiwan, its battle off Kaohsiung, the mobilization of US and Allied forces, and now what appeared to be China's opening strike in a war over Taiwan. While Admiral Mulliken conferred with the National Security Council back in DC and the raising of US forces to DEFCON 2, a rumble suddenly shook the INDOPACOM headquarters building. Across the Hawaiian Islands, hundreds of pre-positioned suicide drones autonomously attacked their targets, including satellite tracking, space surveillance, communications and signals intelligence facilities, air defense, and early warning radars, as well as civilian electrical substations. The damage to the INDOPACOM headquarters building was trivial, but the message it delivered was startlingly clear, that the PLA's reach was far, and their will to escalate was great. Outside, as sirens wailed, INDOPACOM Chief of Staff, U.S. Air Force Major General Chris Seeloff, looked out over Honolulu and the billowing smoke from fires at the Navy's fuel storage farm west of the city. He later wrote, quote, "In that moment, we were all transported back in time to December 7th, 1941. Inside, Admiral Mulliken did his best to compartmentalize the attacks taking place around him as he received new updates from Taiwan, confirming that the PLA's attack was preparatory for an invasion. In addition to the loading of troops aboard landing craft and ferries, smart mines had been detected and destroyed as they attempted to breach into the Tamsui River, while small PLA Special Operations Forces had been spotted and engaged at beaches and port locations along the western coast. But the Admiral could not compartmentalize what came next, when FBI agents from the Honolulu office arrived with terrible news. The Admiral's civilian vehicle, the one he normally drove but had not while being sequestered at headquarters, had exploded in a suicide drone attack. His wife Helena, of 28 years, who had taken the vehicle to work as the radiology director at the Queen's Medical Center, was dead. The autonomous attack was in error, as the decapitation strike had been meant for the Admiral. It would be just one of many errors made that day where innocent civilians were targeted and killed by mistaken identity, mishap, or algorithmic failure. In shock, Admiral Mulliken relinquished command to his deputy, U.S. Army Lieutenant General Ronald Lang. Under close guard as he rushed to his daughter at a newly secured location, the Admiral received word that satellites had just detected the launch of hundreds of ballistic missiles across eastern China. The blitz against Taiwan had begun. Coming up in episode 20, Taiwan, Japan, the Philippines, and the United States all feel the brunt of China's opening strike. If you enjoy this series, please send me a YouTube thanks, or join the Flat Circle History Patreon site, where you'll get behind-the-scenes access, commercial-free episodes, and tons of member-only content. Plus, it will help out John, the guy who makes this series possible. You can also now purchase Flat Circle History merchandise at John's website at forsberg.com. Lastly, a shout-out to my subject matter experts for this episode, including Michael Hilliard of the Red Line podcast, Darth Rust, Fix Edit, The War at Home, and a few others who shall remain anonymous. And as always, please like, subscribe, and share this video. And thanks for watching.